Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon. We are live. It's 4 o'clock on the 14th of June. We're going to start any moment. Okay, everybody, welcome to our webinar. Thank you for joining us. Today's webinar is titled Grade 10 Redefined with the American GED. My name is Sean Swartz. I am the CEO of SK Education Solutions. SK Education Solutions is the official office of the GED in South Africa and throughout Africa. As you are aware, we are live on YouTube. We have made the comments facility available for you to post your questions. So please, in the comments facility, feel free to type in your comments. We will be monitoring these questions and we will try our best to ensure that our expert panelists answer your questions. A special welcome to all our prospective GED students and parents. Just as a bit of background as to what the GED is before we start, the GED testing program makes it possible for you to earn the equivalent of a high school leaving certificate to facilitate either employment or entry into further studies. It was created many years ago in 1942 in the US, and today we have way more than 20 million students that have graduated with the GED. The GED is made up of about 8 subjects, and those 8 subjects are combined into 4 different tests. The tests are English, maths, science, and social studies. And once you've passed all 4 of those tests, you get a GED diploma issued to you by the Department of Education in Washington, DC, in America. That diploma is exactly the same as any diploma that a GED student will get from anywhere else in the world. So it's a highly recognized international diploma. Today, we have a very special guest with us. She graduated with her GED through the online school called Learnalot. And as a Learnalot GED graduate, she is also studying a Bachelor of Science degree. She's studying this degree through Boston City campus, and I'm sure she'll tell you more about that. And I often get asked the question, can I study further? Can I do a degree after I get my GED? Well, I think our guest speaker will answer that question for you tonight. We are very privileged to have Emma Edwards with us. She is proof that you can get your GED and go and study towards a degree. She's going to share with us her GED experience. She will also stay online to answer any questions that you may have for her or about the GED in general. So feel free to type your questions in the comments facility. We will be monitoring these questions and we will try our best to ensure we answer your questions. Also, don't forget to like this video on YouTube and also to subscribe to our channel if you would like to stay up to date with all things GED related. So Emma, thank you for agreeing to chat to us today. Over to you.
Hi everyone. So as you know my name, Emma Edwards. I did a GED last year in the year 2020, and I am currently a Bachelor of Social Science student at Boston. So I decided to do a GED after my grade 10 year. And my grade 10 year was when COVID hit. So both me and my dad decided, okay, school's not going to be very nice after COVID because the mark system was very different after COVID hit. So we didn't like the mark system. So we were debating, okay, what can we do? So then my dad discovered the GED. Now we did a lot of research and we tried to figure out exactly what the GED is and what it could get me in my future, because I've always wanted to be a teacher for foundation phase. So after discovering the GED through Learnalot, we decided, okay, we're going to do it. In my December holidays, everyone else was buying stationery. I was still figuring out what I was going to do for school. So then my dad contacted Lindsay, and who's here as well, and decided, okay, how can we do this? And she was like, no, you can do it right now. So we were like, okay, let's do it. And everyone else was still in school holidays. I started on the 5th of January, which was the best thing I could possibly have ever done because it allowed me to work faster. So with the GED, one of the benefits I found was you can work at your own pace. So everyone decided that you can do 2 hours a day, or you can do 4 hours a day. Like my minimum was 2 hours a day, but I went up to, I think, 6 hours, just enjoying going through the process of doing one subject at a time, not doing 13 subjects all at once and feeling so overwhelmed by so many subjects. So I finished my first subject in a month, and then I went on to write the exam. And then I finished the next one and the next one and so on. Another reason I love the GED is because it teaches you so much more than what school does. It teaches you to be self-disciplined because you're online. You don't have teachers telling you, get to work, do your homework. You do it yourself. And unfortunately, if you don't, you fall behind. So self-discipline, as well as it's a lot more logical and analytical thinking. It's not like they will say the math core jokes of when are we ever going to use this, or why is the ABCs in maths core. It's the GED is different. It teaches you things that you are going to use in your future and you are going to see it all the time, such as like English. You're not writing basic English essays anymore. You're writing argumentative essays, because you need to be able to do that in your future, especially like people like lawyers. I felt like I could become a lawyer after writing some of those essays, because something that essay had is you're not allowed to have your opinion. You're basing it all on evidence. So I felt like I could go in a court of law and defend someone. So that's something that I really enjoyed. Also, the tutors and the teachers, they're there for you all the time. I had a tutor session once a week, whether I needed it or not. And it was just to check up on you, see if you're okay, see how you're doing. If you were struggling, you could contact Lindsay or you could contact your tutor. My tutor was Angela. You could contact any one of those and they would answer you almost straight away. And if you were not getting it still, they'd be like, okay, let's book a tutor session. Let's talk about it. So it felt very calming, and it felt not more like school and a teacher, but more like you were learning with family, you know? Like I could have someone to support me the whole way. So that's how I found it. And now it turned out great because I luckily worked hard and I did get good marks with a lot of support and help from my tutors. And now I am, I just finished my first semester, waiting for results. I finished my first semester, going on to second semester. My course is 3 years and I'll update you after that.
Thanks, Emma.
Awesome.
So Emma, thank you so much. I think let's just ask a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
No problem.
The first question, well, not really a question, if you could just maybe tell the audience, where are you studying? More about it and your experience during applying after you got your GED, when you wanted to apply to do the degree. How did that process go? Was it an easy process, etc.?
So applying for, after having a GED, not many places where I study. I'm located in South Africa, Durban, KwaZulu-Natal province. So with a GED, you have the option of studying overseas, and it's recognized so much overseas if you wanted to. But I wanted to stay here with family, so we were trying to figure out where to go from here. Doing teaching was a little bit difficult, only because places such as Varsity College and Embry required me to do a higher certificate first before doing my teaching degree, which is an extra year, including 4 years. So, I might have been a bit lazy and didn't want to do an extra year of work. So we did a lot of research, and then I discovered Boston was also the best place to go, because GED is recognized so easily with Boston. So you go to Boston, you say you got a GED, they're like, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to do a degree? Do you want to do a diploma? What do you want to do? We recognize GED fully. And they also do all the paperwork for you, and it's not like you have to go do pre-tests before they actually accept you. They accept you straight away. So we were looking at Boston's website to figure out, okay, what can I do that will allow me to do teaching? And we came across the Bachelor of Social Science, which is sort of like the hospitality field. So I have 5 modules, and in those 5 modules, I have psychology. So with my psychology module that I do throughout my degree, I can go into teaching straight afterwards. If I wanted to do it here in South Africa, if I wanted to do it overseas, it might require me to do a 6-month course.
Fantastic, thanks. And Emma, a question I definitely get asked a lot is, a lot of students are very nervous of maths, whether they're doing pure maths at school at the moment or maths literacy. How did you find the GED maths?
Okay, so I was also the same. I was also petrified of maths, because in grade 10, I took maths core and I really didn't like it. I didn't want to do maths core, but my dad, being an accountant, was like, Emma, do maths core. So I took maths core, and COVID hit, so the marks were a little bit iffy. So as soon as I started maths as a subject in GED, I was like, I hope this goes well. But Angela told me, my tutor reassured me that the GED maths is 60% maths lit and 40% maths core. So if you know your basic maths lit, if you know your basic maths lit, you can still pass, and you can still pass well. So doing maths core and doing maths lit in school and going on to a GED, it doesn't make much of a difference, just because you will be able to adapt and you'll be able to notice the work is more relatable than just doing trigonometry.
I think you've just summed up exactly what the GED is about. It's very much about the application of knowledge within real situations that you can relate to. Another question I get is, in terms of social studies, obviously you do American civics and government and American history. A lot of students are saying, but I haven't done American history before. Am I going to struggle to suddenly pick up American history? How did you find social studies? So
for me in the GED, social studies was most difficult subject because of adapting to American history compared to South African history. Now, it was more of nothing in the GED you have to parrot learn. It's never about parrot learning. It's all about, okay, this means that and this is why. It makes sense. It's not, okay, that's that. Okay, why? So when it came to social studies and learning about, or can't even remember them now, learning about the hierarchy and learning about your why the president is there, and then I can't even do it anymore.
Yeah.
yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Learning about your different branches and all of that. That was something I struggled with. So I definitely had most of my tutor sessions when it came to social studies and a lot of practice tests, because what the GED does is they give you little, not stories, but they give you examples. They're like, so this is what happened here. Now identify what type of branch this is. So it's all about, if you know what this is, you're going to know what that is by default. So it's also considering the GED. Also considering the GED as multiple choice, you can go through the answers and be like, that's definitely not it. That's definitely not it. Okay, these are the two I'm left with. Let's see which one makes more sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you must have found quite a big switch going from mainstream school to essentially homeschooling or online schooling. How did you find that change? Because it takes quite a lot of dedication to be able to do online learning on your own.
It definitely does. Where I'll tell you, I was not very happy with my dad when he told me, okay, you can start school tomorrow, and everyone else still had 2 weeks of holiday. I was definitely not happy with him. But I started, and whenever you start your first subject, you get a practice test, just so the tutor can give like a whereabouts on exactly how much you know of the subject. So going on to online learning was, I think the best word I could use is very different, but in a good way, because in the real world, you're never going to get someone that's going to tell you, sit down, do your work, you have homework to do, you have to do this. Well, okay, some jobs do that, but not really. They're not going to be spoon feeding you and be behind you, pushing you every step of the way. You kind of have to do that on your own. So there were definitely some days where I'm like, I don't feel like doing 2 hours today. I feel like sitting in front of the TV and doing nothing today. Which is not really a good idea, because you want to finish, you want to feel accomplished, you want to know that you did your 2 hours today. I used to sit with my course breakdown. I used to get a course breakdown for each subject, and I used to tick as I go, as I finished each little lesson and made notes for it. I used to tick as I go, and it used to feel so good knowing, okay, some people are still on that course while you've moved on to the next one. So that is a little bit of my competitive side coming out, which at school, you don't have a choice of moving forward or going faster than other students. You sit at your own pace. So even if you understand, just because Jenny over there doesn't understand means you have to sit on the subject, have to sit on that topic for another half an hour. So it's very nice having one-on-one, because as soon as the tutor recognizes you've got that, she'll be like, okay, let's move on.
Yeah, so it's definitely studying at your own pace, which is nice. And it's nice that you can just focus on one subject at a time, focus on that subject fully before you move on to the next subject. Also, I know there's a few night birds out there. I was a night bird myself. So it was also really nice knowing if I didn't feel like doing it at 8 o'clock in the morning, I could sit on it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the house was quiet. Or I wrote a practice test, a practice exam at 12 o'clock at night, because I was like, I can't sleep. So I was like, okay, let's do some work. Yeah, definitely. And I must admit I had a quiet giggle when you explained English, because that's exactly how I explain it, that you need to pretend that you're a lawyer and you need to pick the strongest opinion and argue why. And I think that's one of the nice things about the GED and the English, is that students don't lose marks for incorrect spelling, as long as you can understand what the word is. It's more about the skills acquired and applied.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I think that's a really good point as to what you've just said now, is that the GED, and you mentioned it earlier as well, especially with the social science component or the history component, and that is, there's no such thing as learning off the heart. It's all critical thinking skills. And those critical thinking skills are really what is needed for the real world. No one wants you to remember anything off the heart anymore. Google remembers everything for you. So you need to think. That's what everyone needs you to do. And I'm sure you've also found that in the degree studies that you're doing now, is that there's a lot more thinking involved than learning off the heart. So that's what 21st century skills are all about. And I'm sure that's definitely helped you in your degree versus somebody that's come from a different system and then is trying to start their degree studies.
I mean, with my degree, I study with two of my closest friends of mine that also go to Boston, but one of my friends is in Pretoria and the other one is in Durban, but another quite far away from me. So we communicate all the time. Sometimes we video call and stuff. And it's so nice because sometimes there'll be a section of work or a topic or like a way that we write our exams. Like the way we write our exams this year was also exactly how I wrote my GED. And I was like, I recognize this, I know this, I've done this before. And all my friends are like, Emma, okay, how did you do that? Or how did you know how to write your essay that way? And it's because I did the GED, and Boston and GED work together so well. And so I'll explain to them. I mean, the other day I went to my tutor, who I spoke to, I think last in probably January. I sent her a message saying, please, can you send me an example of that argumentative essay that I did when I did English? Because I have to do an argumentative essay for one of my modules now, and I'd like to see how it was formatted. Because it was so similar. And it was like, I've done this before, I can do it again.
Yeah, so that's really great to hear that not only this did you learn the work and did you pass your GED, but you actually gain skills that you're now using in real life, in your studies, and then obviously once you get your degree and you're going to work, you'll definitely be using those skills as well. The other thing that you said, which was really great to hear, is that in order to reduce the stress components, and for other factors as well, you actually studied one subject at a time instead of studying a whole bunch all at the same time. How did you find that? Was that a big change in what you were used to?
It was definitely a big change, but it was so relaxing. It was so calming to know that I only had to focus on one thing at a time. I know multitasking is supposed to be my thing, but it was knowing that I don't have to. It was the best thing, because when I started, I was like, okay, give me a section of each, let me start now. And she was like, no, you're doing one subject, you'll write the exam, you don't have to touch that subject for the rest of the year. And I remember feeling a bit shocked. I was like, what do you mean? So I don't have like end of year exams, or that I have to do all four or nothing. And she was like, no, work on one subject at a time, do your best at that subject, and then move on to another one.
Yeah, agreed. Now, one thing we haven't discussed at all, which I'd love to chat about, is that the GED has a thing called the GED Ready tests. Now, those GED Ready tests are like mock exams.
Yes.
And And those exams help you identify whether you are ready to write those final exams. And they also help you prepare for the final exams because you're studying hard to make sure that you do very, very well in your GED ready mock exams. Now, if we just had to compare that to South Africa, the mock exams could be considered something like the matric prelims, something like that, just to help you prepare. Do you want to talk us through your experience with the GED ready tests?
Okay, so with the ready tests, it was also very nice knowing you had the support of your tutor, because when you're at school and you write an exam or you're preparing for your exam, there's not a lot that teachers can do to help you. They'll either say you should have listened in class or you need to look at this work, but it's not really answering your question. Now, when you finished all your lessons for that one specific subject, the tutor will give you the go-ahead to go and buy your ready test, which, like you said, is a mock exam. And it's a little bit shorter than your normal exam, but it's set the exact same way. And it's not the same questions, but similar. It's just to prepare you on exactly what you might be given, so you don't get a big shock when you're like, okay, what is this? Because there's a few times where that happens in normal school, where you studied a different booklet to everybody else, and there comes the exam, and you're like, what is this? So you write that ready test whenever you ready test, and once you've written that, you'll get your results. I think it was almost straight away, if I'm not mistaken. And the tutor will work through it with you, exactly like I don't know if anyone knows the term, but control test at school. The teacher will work through it with you. So your tutor will have a tutor session, go through each question, be like, okay, I think you're ready for your exam. Or, okay, maybe we should do a few more tutor sessions before you go and write your exam, just to give you the best opportunity to do really well in your exam, because that mark is the only mark. You only have one exam for each of your subjects. So to do super well the first time would be really fantastic.
Did you find that the marks that you got in your GED ready resembled what you got in your final test? Was it a good indicator for you as to how you did in the test?
It was. It was also very nice to know that I would always do just a little bit better than I did in my ready test. So you write your ready test, and soon after you write your exam, and mine would be like a few points different. So you can tell just by that how similar the ready test and how well the ready test prepares you for your exam.
And your actual exam experience, in terms of, I know a lot of students who've possibly been homeschooling their whole life, they find it quite daunting going into a Boston testing center, going through the ID check. How did you find the actual testing experience?
So I also got nervous knowing I had to go into a college facility and go and write a GED test, but also all the staff there help you so well. I mean, that lady knows me, the front desk lady knows me so well, because I went there 4 times last year and now I attend her university. So you go into, well, for my campus anyway, my campus is the Umhlanga campus, Umhlanga Boston City campus. And it's daunting, but once you sit down, you don't think about it anymore, because you go into a little quiet area with a few computers, no one disturbs you, you have your ID on the side, and as soon as you click start, you start. I think there's only one exam, English exam, where you have a 10-minute break. I never ended up taking that 10-minute break. I just finished the whole exam one shot. But it's really quiet. You have no students around you, so you can't talk. You won't get penalized for that. And yeah, so as soon as you finish that exam, you click done, you leave, you say goodbye to everyone really nicely, and you walk out. And then English took the longest because you write an essay. I got my results the next day, but you'll be sitting in the waiting room waiting for your lift, and you'll get your results.
Amazing. It makes that anguish of waiting for results a little bit less, because you don't have to wait too long. I think you should have results within 24 hours of writing, even English.
Yes.
That's great. Awesome.
I think just as a reminder to everybody that's out there that's listening, a couple of things when you do go write your final exams. When you go, firstly, go early so that you don't have to stress, you don't have to worry about anything. Secondly, don't forget your identity document, your book, your smart ID. If you don't take your smart ID with you, they're not going to allow you to write the exam, and you're going to throw away all that money, and it's expensive. It's $80. It's about 1,200 Rand. So instead of throwing that away, take your ID with you. It's really like anything else. If you want to go to the bank, the first thing they're going to do is ask you for your ID. So in order to make sure that it's you that's writing the exam, they will be asking you for your ID, and they will not let you write that exam without the ID. So just take it with you. The second thing, maths exam. Please, Emma, you tell everybody, are you allowed to take a calculator with you into the exam venue?
No, because you have a calculator on the computer with you.
So the computer gives you a calculator to use. You don't need any calculators with you, and you're not allowed to bring one with you.
Yes.
Great. So that covers the process. So from the starting and the learning with the school that you went to, and the studying and the pre-exams of the GED ready, and then you wrote your exams, then you graduated. If you passed all 4 exams, you did well, you graduated. You then needed to get your diploma.
Yes.
Did you get a diploma immediately? You get it by email. Do you want to talk us through that? What happened there?
Yeah, so I finished my last exam. I got a big congratulations email from Lindsay and from you and from my tutor saying, well done, you passed, you've done it, you've finished. It was a bit shocking to know I finished because it was mid-November. So I finished school and everyone else was still in school.
You had that extra break, but it was just at the end. It wasn't at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I did.
It was at the end of the year.
Yeah, so I finished, and then I got an email, and I actually have a certificate in a frame, just saying Emma Edwards passed her GED, and then the second is your diploma showing your marks. Well, that's your report. The other one is a diploma. You've got your marks all set out. It is a little bit different to how a regular report looks. I did get a fright when I saw that, but after getting it explained to me and exactly what it meant, I was like, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what you're referring to is the percentile rank that's on the transcript. It shows the mark that you got, and then it shows the better you did, the lower the percentage was. And so that was really like quite a scary thing. And it's that percentile rank is not the mark that you got, because the GED doesn't work with percentages. It's basically just showing you how well you did compared to everybody else that wrote the exam on the same day as you. That's really what it is, and you can basically ignore that, because the most important thing is, what did you get? How much did you get out of 200? So if you got 175 out of 200, then you did really well in your test.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, when you apply to Boston to do the degree, they take care of all the paperwork for you. So they apply to USAF, which is the matriculation board for a foreign exemption letter. They do it for you. You didn't have to do anything. You obviously had to pay them, but you don't have to do the work. They do all the work in the background, and they get that for you, and then they accept you as a Boston student. And you also didn't need to apply to SACWA either, because Boston don't require that either. You could just go directly into your studies. And now you're studying, you're already halfway through your first year. That's a 3-year degree. I'm sure you'll do really, really well, and you'll graduate in another 2.5 years, and you'll have your degree, and then you can continue. Maybe you'll study further, maybe you'll do an honors degree. Who knows what you're going to do? So firstly, I just want to thank you for sharing your experience and answering our questions and being part of this discussion. I haven't really introduced Lindsay. Lindsay, just quickly, who is Lindsay? So Lindsay has worked in the education industry for the last 17 years, maybe 18 now, with a particular focus on international qualifications, just like the GED. And before joining the GED in South Africa over 7 years ago, Lindsay actually worked for a Cambridge school. She also worked for Pearson, and she also worked for City and Guilds, which are all international qualification awarding bodies. So when you're dealing with the GED and you want to know anything and you need help with anything, Lindsay is the person to go to, because she will sort you out, because she knows everything relating to the GED. And so because she knows everything, we've actually got some questions for her and some questions for you, Emma. So I'm just going to go through the questions, if you don't mind, just for a couple more minutes, and then we're going to end off. But before we continue, as the audience, please just like our video if you do like what you're seeing and what you're learning all about. And if you do want to learn more about the GED, you can also subscribe so that you can get more information on the GED when we run all these other webinars. So my first question that I have received is from Ashley. And the question is, I'll just read it. It says, my son is doing the GED. He's concentrating on maths only, and then he's going to write his exam and is this advisable to do one subject at a time, or should they do more subjects at the same time? So I'd like to hear from both of you. Emma, what's your experience? Having gone through the Learnalot school, which does one subject at a time, how did you find that? Do you prefer that? Do you think it's the best option? What do you recommend?
I do think it's the best option, doing one subject at a time through the GED, just because, for example, 2 subjects, social science and English, you're doing very similar things. So you write an argumentative essay in English about things that you learned in social studies. So if you had to do those 2 at the same time, you might clash and get confused. So doing one of those at a time, writing the exam knowing you finished, and then doing the next subject being English, and being able to relate to the last subject, being like, I've seen that before, I know what that is. Okay, now I have a bit of an understanding on how to start this subject. It's not like you're going to mix the 2 together.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you, Emma, and that the whole thing with the GED is it gives you the flexibility and it helps reduce the stress load on you. So by doing one subject at a time, you can focus 100% on that subject. And as you mentioned, the social studies feeds into the English, which is so why we often recommend to students to start with the social studies and then go on to English, because the skills learned in social studies, you can then apply when you study English. They just flow nicely. The only time a student possibly wouldn't test straight after studying a subject is if a student starts studying the GED when they're 16. They would potentially then study one subject at a time, go through multiple subjects, and then when they turn 17, write. And why it's possible to do that as opposed to having to wait is that, as Emma said, the GED is very much about the skills acquired and then applying that knowledge. So although you do, let's say you study social studies, then you do English, then you do maths, then you do science, and then you turn 17, then you just need to do revision on each of the subjects before writing, because you've already developed those skills in studying the course. But then we would still recommend focusing on writing one subject giving yourself time to do a revision on the next subject and then writing the next subject.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you, Lindsay. The next question, Lindsay, is going to be for you. What do you need to do after the GED if you want to go to university in the USA or in the UK?
Okay, so about 98% of colleges and universities in America recognize and accept the GED. And actually, if you score high marks, like above 175, you can even get some credits towards your university degree in America, which is really nice. So they look at your score as to whether they accept you, whether they accept you with credit. It really depends on your score, but American universities recognize and accept the GED. In England, you might need to go through a similar process as you would in South Africa with SAQA, but in England it's called the UK NARIC. So you might need to apply to them for a certificate of evaluation so that UK institutions can understand the level that the GED is at.
Okay, that's good to know. And now from Nadine. Nadine is asking, it's also probably for you, Lindsay. Can you study in South Africa at another college if you don't want to study at Boston?
Yes, definitely. So Boston obviously is something we've talked about today because Emma's studying at Boston, and we know Boston accepts GED students for certificates, diplomas, and degrees. As Emma mentioned, there's a lot of institutions, particularly private tertiary institutions, that accept GED students, but then you're looking at studying a higher certificate first before applying for a degree program. So Varsity College, EduVars, any of those, you would look at first doing a higher certificate before you apply for a degree program.
So just to clarify, a higher certificate is one level lower than an undergrad bachelor degree. However, once you've got your higher certificate, what many of the universities will do is they'll actually allow you, if the degree that you're doing is similar to the higher certificate, they'll actually allow you to transfer some of the credit that you've received in your higher certificate into the degree. So instead of taking a whole year for studying the higher certificate and then starting your degree, it's only really cost you 6 months of time, because some of those credits can be transferred to your degree and then you can move forward. Here's another question I'm just going to read it again. My son is almost done with the pre-GED, which is like a bridging course of some sort before you start your GED. And he's wondering about job opportunities after graduating with his GED. With no college degree in South Africa, is the GED diploma accepted in the workplace?
Okay, so what I would recommend in that instance is you can do your GED, and the pre-GED is fantastic because it gets a student up to the level they need to be to start the GED, particularly in English and maths, which are the core subjects. I would then apply to SAQA. SAQA is the South African Qualifications Authority for a certificate of evaluation. And what that does is it gives you local recognition. So if you're applying for a job or applying to a workplace that doesn't really know what the GED is, because not everyone does know what it is, with your local evaluation from SAQA, then they know what level it is. So in technical terms, your SAQA evaluation would say that the GED is the closest comparable qualification to the National Senior Certificate at grade 12 at NQF level 4. In layman's term, it's really saying that the GED is equivalent to a grade 12. And that letter then you can attach to your CV together with a copy of your GED diploma so that the workplace knows how to equate your GED.
And so if you are applying for a job that would normally need a matric, you can theoretically apply for that same job with your GED plus the SAQA letter.
Correct, yes, because the GED is considered equivalent. So any job that says you need a South African matric, or if you need an NQF level 4 qualification, you can apply with a GED.
Okay, very good. Now some students didn't finish matric. They might have written matric. They might have passed some of the subjects, but not all of them. And so the question goes as follows. Do you get any points or credits for subjects that you have already passed towards your matric?
No, you can't. You can't combine different curriculums, particularly curriculums across multiple countries. So if you did your South African matric and you didn't pass some subjects, you can't then supplement it with some GED subjects, some British Cambridge or Pearson subjects. You have to stick to one awarding body. So if you do your South African matric, then you would need to rewrite those subjects. If you, let's say, for example, did your Cambridge, you would need to stick to Cambridge. The only place where you could potentially have an overlap is with British curriculums being Cambridge and Pearson, AS level. But you need to think of each curriculum as a standalone curriculum, and you can't mix them, particularly if you're looking at meeting the requirements to pass matric.
Yeah, so the GED has 4 exams. You have to pass all 4 of those exams. No other exams are accepted.
Correct.
Good. Here's one, Emma. You can answer some of this, and then I'll let Lindsay answer the rest of it. So the question was, what do you need in order to qualify to do the GED? So you pointed to yourself earlier, so you were obviously 16 when you started the degree, the GED. Tell us about, what did you have? What grade did you have? What age were you? What else did you need before you could actually register to do the GED?
So I was 16. I had just finished grade 10, and I moved on to the GED my grade 11 year. So the year I was meant to do grade 11, I did my GED. And I'm supposed to be in matric now, and I'm in university. So I was 16 at the time, my birthday only being in April. So I could only write any of my exams in April. So I wrote, when it was my birthday, I think I wrote 2 exams the following week. So happy birthday to me, write 2 exams, but it was my choice. So it wasn't like anyone was telling me to. A lot of it went through my dad, if I'm being honest, but it was, okay, this is what my daughter wants. She wants to do grade 11 and 12. Okay, you can do that with the GED. Okay, great. Payment, you start. That was it.
Yeah, so I mean, that is one of the ways is we generally recommend students to have at least a grade 10. If a student, let's take, for example, a student that had to drop out of school and is now 21, 22, they don't want to go back to school. But if they possibly don't have a grade 10, that's where then we recommend the pre-GED bridging course to just get them up to speed, to get to the level they needed to start the GED. But exactly, students that are 16, 17, who've completed grade 10, they're the perfect candidates for the GED.
Right, so that was a nice experience that you went through, Emma. But yes, those are the rules as per Lindsay. So Lindsay, I'm just going to combine 2 questions over here. They're really for you. It's from a leader. Firstly, what is better for the workplace, as in to get a job? Having a GED or getting what's called an American high school diploma, which is obviously from a high school somewhere in America? And part of that question is, why is the GED not seen as a matric anymore? Which I think you can just clarify that.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the second part and then I'll move to the first part. Is where you say the GED is not considered a matric anymore, I think you're referring to University South Africa, who's no longer accepting applications from South African GED students for foreign conditional exemption. But that doesn't mean that the GED isn't equivalent to matric, because the South African Qualifications Authority are still giving the certificate of evaluation. I think the difference between a GED and a high school diploma is that your GED has its international recognition as well as its accreditations. It's always important for a testing body to have a country of origin accreditation, meaning that it's got a status and it's got registration and accreditation in the country where it was founded. A lot of countries, that is something they ask for if you go in with qualifications. If you've got that country of origin accreditation, that status, and the GED really has a status, I would say, in the recognition over the American high school diploma. They might argue differently, but looking at the GED being offered in over 85 countries with millions of graduates, I think the stats would say the same as me.
And I think let's just also clarify, the reality is that Boston City campus do accept you directly into a degree. And in order for them to do that, they have to get a letter from USAF. So why can't you get a letter yourself from USAF? Well, that's because they've made that call. However, a university at their own discretion can go to USAF and say, we recognize the GED. We want Emma Edwards to study with us to do a degree. She's got her GED. Kindly go through the application process. And they do it in the background, and they can do it because they're allowed to use their university discretion to get it. So Emma wasn't able to do it on her own, but because Boston did it for her, she was able to get that letter and do her degree. The next question, we want to finish up very soon, so we're going to try to go through the questions quite quickly. Here's a question. I've recently completed my GED. I've seen that I can convert my GED to a matric certificate. It's not really a matric certificate, it's the SACWA equivalency, but Lindsay, you have already spoken about that. And then it says, when adding my diploma to my CV, is it necessary to have this SACWA certificate?
It's purely optional. If it was me, I would do it for the local recognition if I was going to be looking for work in South Africa, but it is something that's completely optional because there is a cost to SACWA associated with it. I just want to flag that if anyone is looking to do their SACWA equivalency, we do have a step-by-step guide, including the SACWA video, on our website on how to apply to SACWA on www.ged.org.za under resources.
Okay, brilliant. Another question, it's not really a question, it's actually a comment, and it's a good comment. Somebody is saying, we recommend that you practice your maths with the calculator, with the online calculator before you go into your exam, which makes perfect sense. I'm sure, Emma, did you practice a lot with the calculator?
Yes, it was recommended, and it really does help.
Yeah, at least you get to know where all the buttons are because it looks the same and all of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Lindsay, where are we going to get this information from? The question is, how much time do you get per exam? Obviously, each exam has a certain number of minutes that you get to write that exam. Where can they find that information? Okay,
so we've got a breakdown per subject, including the test time breakdown on the ged.org.za website under GED test, and then we've broken it down per subject. We also have a bunch of free resources under resources per subject, which includes a tutorial on the on-screen calculator, as well as a tutorial on what the test looks like. Including, very important, is a tutorial on the RLA argumentative essay, how it works. So it's very important to go through that website. If you're going to be doing the GED, go through all the pages. It's a lot, but go through it, as well as the frequently asked questions, because every time I get a frequently asked question, I put it on there. So generally, I mean, half my emails I answer, I copy and paste from the frequently asked questions.
Yeah, so it's very, very important. Lindsay, won't you actually just put it in the comments? I'll do it quickly, so I think it'll be easier. I'm going to put the website. It's ged.org.za. That's the website address. It's got a huge amount of information. Go to that website. You'll get all the information you're looking for over there. If you don't know, if you can't find it, you're welcome to even email us. our email address is info@ged.org.za. info@ged.org.za. Send us an email. We'll be happy to answer all your questions. Here's a very important one. Is there a set date that you have to write your exams, or can you just write them at any time and just start the GED at any time?
You can start at any time. As Emma said, she started before her friends started. Tests you can book at any of the, I think it's over 40, nearly 45 Boston testing centers around the country. You can book when there's a test slot available and write. Some testing centers even offer exams on Saturdays for anyone who's working, but you can start and finish any time in the year.
Brilliant. And so that takes me to my next question. That is, my son finished grade 10. Can he do the GED, and how can he start?
If he wants any advice on the GED, he can email us on the info@ged.org.za, or go to our website. There's a how-to guide on how to set up a free ged.com profile. That's your starting point.
But you can start. I mean, if you've got a grade 10 and you're already 16 years old, you can start.
Yeah, and if you're looking for ways to study, you can contact us and we'll give you all the various options on how you can study for the GED, whether you source your own learning content, which isn't something we always recommend, but students are more than welcome to do it, or whether you're looking for just online learning resources or you're looking for the tutor support, it's up to you.
Fine. And I think this next question is a bit of it's got lots of different answers. I'm going to let Emma answer this one first. That is, how long does it take to complete from the time you start studying till the time you finish your GED? From your experience, Emma, how long does that take?
Well, for someone, I've always been get it done now. So that's always been my mindset. I mean, I was always the child in school that did my oral first just to get it finished. So based off of that, I wanted to finish my GED in 8 months. But the only thing that stopped me was having my birthday in April. That's caused it to be a little bit later. But you work, you sit down, you do those lessons, you make sure you're paying attention, you incorporating all that work into everyday life, which is really easy, and just absorbing all the information you're getting. You can finish the GED anytime.
But I think you'll find, and you also, from how you spoke, you'll find that most students take 10 to 12 months. Yes. To complete in general. That's really what we found the average student takes to complete. Obviously, students that study, as you said, 6 hours every single day, they're going to finish it quicker. But the average is 10 to 12 months. I'm going to go very quickly because I want to try and get the last two questions. How long does it take to study for a GED subject before writing the exam? Well, it's dependent on the actual subject. Some subjects are much longer than others. So, for example, social studies is quite a short subject. Maths or English is a much longer subject. And so it's anything from 2 months to 5 months per subject, depending on the actual subject. And then if I wanted to do a higher certificate, do I need to get my SAQA certificate first, Lindsay?
It depends very much on the institution. I always say to students, start with checking with the institution, because if you don't need to go to SAQA and apply to SAQA, because it is over 2,000 Rand for that evaluation, and it's taking quite a while at the moment. If you don't need to go that route, don't. If the institution will accept you purely with your GED, as some do, then you don't need to apply to SAQA. It really depends on the institution.
Okay, brilliant. So firstly, Emma, I'd like to thank you for your time and your newly acquired expertise on the GED, and to you, Lindsay, as well, for your expertise and helping us. And Emma, thank you so much for giving of your time. I'm sure you've inspired a lot of people out there to go ahead and do the GED and then to study further. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. It has been an hour, so we don't want to keep you any longer. But thank you very, very much to everyone for attending. Have a great evening.